I was like, yeah, that don't really got nothing to do with me. And to be perfectly honest, me and 50, we were in the group, but I wasn't in it for that long, and we weren't friends.
Right.
They just threw me in the group, and I appreciated the alley-oop, but we weren't homies. So a lot of people get it misconstrued. They think that, like, we were best friends or something, and I betrayed this friendship or something like that. But what I did was stay loyal to, you know, the people that, like, I listened to coming up.
Right.
Like,
What if the biggest secret in hip-hop wasn't about who got shot, but about who got used? That's the question hanging over the industry tonight, as a single Instagram post, now deleted, has ignited a firestorm that's burning through decades of silence, legal filings, and carefully guarded reputations. We're not talking about another rap beef or a diss track gone too far. This is about power, leverage, and a system so entrenched that even the most explosive allegations barely scratch the surface. And it all starts with 2 words from 50 Cent that weren't just a jab. They were a confirmation.
it takes you a lot of time to undo things that are second nature, man. Like, you know, being from the streets. It take a lot of time.
When Curtis Jackson, the man behind the 50 Cent persona, dropped his latest volley in the never-ending war with the game, he didn't just insult him, he exposed him. Or rather, he forced the world to look at what insiders have allegedly known for years, that the game's rise under Diddy's wing wasn't just about music. It was transactional, intimate. And according to the game's own brother, Big Phase 100, it came with a price no artist should have to pay. The post was simple, a photo of Diddy embracing the game from behind, captioned with a phrase that cut deeper than any punchline. Maybe it wasn't my street credibility. The implication was immediate, brutal, and impossible to unsee. But here's the thing, this wasn't just about the game. It was the first public crack in a dam that's been holding back a flood of whispers, lawsuits, and career-ending secrets. Because if Diddy's relationships with male artists in his circle weren't just professional, then every hit record, every shelved album, every sudden fall from grace starts to look like part of a much darker playbook. We've seen this script before. The pattern is always the same. An artist resists, their career stalls. An artist complies. They get the cosign, the features, the industry protection. But now, for the first time, the receipts are starting to surface. And they're not just pointing to the game. They're pointing to a machine.
Interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic, evidence.
Let's rewind to February 23rd of this year, when Diddy's legal team filed a motion to dismiss one of the many lawsuits piling up against him. This one accusing him of involvement in a 2003 incident with a 17-year-old. His attorney didn't deny the allegations on the merits. Instead, they played the cancel culture card, framing Diddy as the victim of a frenzy. But here's what they didn't address: the growing list of names tied to his inner circle, the redacted court documents that keep dropping hints, and the way his former associates are suddenly remembering details they'd buried for years, like the bodyguard who claimed Diddy groomed Usher as a teenager, describing scenes at the Swiss hotel that sound less like mentorship and more like initiation. Or the producer Rodney Lil Rod Jones, who didn't just accuse Diddy of misconduct, he named names, redacted names. A Philadelphia rapper who dated Nicki Minaj, a singer who performed at the Super Bowl. The math isn't hard. Meek Mill's social media purge, Usher's carefully worded denials, the way Justin Bieber's team rushed to clarify he wasn't a victim, without ever explaining why a 15-year-old was spending 48 hours with Diddy in the first place, talking about getting girls on camera. The pieces fit too neatly, and the more we pull, the more the whole system starts to unravel. This isn't just about private encounters. It's about a two-tiered industry, one for those who played by Diddy's rules and one for those who didn't. Take The Game, for example. After leaving Bad Boy, his career hit a wall. No major features, no industry backing. Meanwhile, artists who allegedly participated in Diddy's world, whether at his infamous white parties or behind closed doors, kept climbing. Meek Mill's sudden resurgence after years in the wilderness. Usher's Super Bowl halftime show, despite a past that, by his own admission, included wild experiences at Diddy's home as a 13-year-old. Even Justin Bieber, who went from a teen prodigy in Diddy's orbit to a global star, only to have his team issue a statement that read like a carefully lawyered dodge. Although Justin is not among Sean Combs' victims. Not a denial of the environment, not a rejection of the allegations, just a distance. Because in this world, silence is the price of survival.
As I said, never before seen footage of the days leading up to his arrest. Can you just talk a little bit about, was there anything that surprised you from that footage?
The footage, well, I think it's rare to find someone who's being, talked about all over the country. All eyes were on him, so to speak. And it was really interesting to see his last days of freedom,
But silence doesn't last forever. Not when the lawsuits stack up. Not when federal agents raid homes in LA and Miami. Not when a former bodyguard goes on record about rites of passage that sound less like industry hazing and more like coercion. And definitely not when the internet starts connecting dots that the industry spent decades pretending weren't there. Like the way Diddy's parties, those legendary invite-only events where A-listers rub shoulders with aspiring stars, weren't just about music. Neighbors in Beverly Hills told the BBC about young women stumbling out of his mansion at all hours, lost, their clothing disheveled. Adult film stars like Adria English have come forward, alleging they were groomed into trafficking after working those same events. And then there's Cassie Ventura's lawsuit, the one that started the avalanche, where she described Diddy's tremendously loyal network, a group so powerful that reporting him wasn't just futile, it was dangerous. Now, let's talk about the careers that mysteriously stalled. The Game wasn't the only one. How many artists signed to Bad Boy or affiliated with Diddy's camp saw their momentum cut switched the moment they pushed back? How many albums got shelved? How many opportunities vanished? Insiders claim it wasn't just about talent, it was about compliance. And if you didn't comply, well, the industry has a way of making you disappear. Look at what happened to Black Rob after he allegedly refused to participate in Diddy's circle, or the way Faith Evans' career shifted after she distanced herself. Even Biggie's estate has been dragged into the conversation, with whispers that his tragic end wasn't just about East Coast-West Coast tension, but about what he knew and who he might have talked to.
With the series, with the film?
I mean, I think the intention is to give a more full-bodied experience to what happened, from the people that agreed to sit down and to participate. And I feel like the film asks a lot of questions, maybe more questions are asked than answers given.
Meanwhile, Diddy's legal strategy is starting to look like a house of cards. His team has called the accusations meritless, shameless attempts at a payday, but they're also fighting to suppress evidence in multiple courts. They've hired Bobby Sternheim, the same attorney who defended Ghislaine Maxwell. They're leaning on technicalities, statutes of limitations, procedural delays, anything to avoid a trial where these patterns might be laid bare. Because here's the thing about patterns. Once you see them, you can't unsee them. And the pattern here isn't just about Diddy. It's about how power works in entertainment. How a single man could allegedly control careers, reputations, even lives, by deciding who gets access and who gets cut off, who gets promoted, who gets destroyed. And that brings us to the question no one's asking loudly enough. If this is how Diddy operated, who else was part of it? Who else knew? Because let's be clear, this wasn't a solo operation. The parties had security. The trips had entourages. The deals had witnesses. When Lil Rod's lawsuit described Diddy forcing him to watch videos of other men in compromising situations, he wasn't just naming Diddy, he was implicating a culture where silence was the cost of entry, and where the biggest names in music, sports, and Hollywood allegedly looked the other way. Or worse, participated. We're not just talking about hip-hop anymore. We're talking about an entire ecosystem where ambition and exploitation blurred into the same thing. Where a 15-year-old Justin Bieber could joke on camera about getting girls with Diddy, and no one batted an eye. Where Usher could describe orgies in Diddy's home as just part of the lifestyle, and the industry treated it as a rite of passage. Where the biggest stars in the world, from Mariah Carey to Beyoncé, attended the same parties, the same after-hours gatherings, and never once, publicly, raised an alarm. Were they complicit, or were they just too afraid to speak? The answers might be coming sooner than we think. With Diddy's trial looming and more lawsuits filing by the week, the walls are closing in. But here's what we know already. The Game's brother didn't post that photo by accident. 50 Cent didn't drop those hints without a reason. And the artists who've stayed silent? They're not just protecting Diddy, they're protecting themselves. Because in a system built on leverage, everyone has something to lose.
If I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as hip-hop is fine with his behaviors. There's no one else being vocal. So you would look at it and just say, because that mind your business, or let me not say nothing about nothing, or those things, it would allow the entire culture to register as if they're for that.
Now, let's talk about the names we haven't heard yet, the ones still hiding in plain sight. The producers, the executives, the other artists who allegedly benefited from the same machine. The ones who still have something to fear. Because if Diddy's inner circle was built on these kinds of transactions, then the real question isn't just about what he did. It's about who helped him do it, and who's still protecting him today. And that's when the story gets even darker. Because the people who know the most, they're not the ones talking. Not yet. But the dam is cracking, and when it breaks, the flood won't just take down Diddy. It'll take down the whole system. The real horror of Diddy's alleged empire wasn't just what happened behind closed doors. It was that those doors were always open, if you knew where to look. And the place to look was the white parties. These weren't just exclusive gatherings where the elite of music, sports, and Hollywood mingled over sparkling drinks and small talk. They were auditions, tests, recording sessions where the currency wasn't just talent, but compliance. Former staffers have described them as carefully staged environments where boundaries blurred into non-existence, where young artists, some barely out of their teens, were allegedly introduced to a world where refusal wasn't an option. And the most chilling detail? The rumors of hidden cameras. Not for security, for leverage.
What they consider a pre-existing beef, right, for 20 years, right, is me being uncomfortable with him suggesting that he takes me shopping. And it's not personal. This is why it never resulted in me doing anything to him or him doing anything to me.
Let's talk about what we know. The white parties were legendary, but not for the reasons the invitations suggested. Held in the Hamptons, in Beverly Hills, even on yachts off the coast of Miami, they were the place where careers were allegedly made and broken. Witnesses have come forward describing scenes that sound less like a celebration and more like a casting call for something far darker. Adria English, a former adult film performer, claimed in her lawsuit that she was groomed into trafficking after working these events, where drinks were allegedly spiked and private encounters were anything but private. But here's the part that should send a chill down your spine. She wasn't the only one. A 16-year-old boy, now a plaintiff in one of the lawsuits, described being taken aside at a white party in 1998, told he had the right look, and then subjected to what he called a rite of passage, one that left him traumatized and his dreams of a music career in ruins. And remember, this was the same event where A-listers like Mariah Carey, Paris Hilton, and Jay-Z were smiling for the cameras, oblivious, or worse, indifferent, to what was allegedly happening in the back rooms. Because in Diddy's world, the party was just at the front. The real business happened where no one was watching. And that brings us to Usher. Because if anyone could confirm the dark underbelly of these gatherings, it's him. He lived it. At just 13 years old, he was installed in Diddy's New York home, a place he later described to Howard Stern as wild, where doors would open to reveal several people in a room engaged in acts no teenager should ever witness. Usher tried to laugh it off, calling it the lifestyle, but listen to his words again. "I don't know if I could indulge and understand what I was even looking at." That's not the language of someone who was just an innocent bystander. That's the language of someone who saw the machine in action and realized too late that he was part of it. And here's the kicker. Usher wasn't just a witness. He was a product, a protege who went from a wide-eyed kid in Diddy's home to a global superstar with a Vegas residency and a Super Bowl halftime show. Coincidence? Or was his compliance the price of admission? Now, let's connect the dots. Because if these parties were about more than just music, if they were about collecting compromising moments, then Diddy wasn't just building a label. He was building an insurance policy. And that policy wasn't just for him. It was for everyone who ever stepped into his orbit. Think about it. Why would a 16-year-old Justin Bieber be warned on national television not to talk about what he does with Big Brother Puff? Why would his team rush to clarify that he wasn't a victim, without ever denying that something happened? What could possibly be so damaging that even years later, the mere suggestion of it requires a public relations fire drill? The answer might lie in what we're starting to hear about Diddy's alleged blackmail vault, a collection of tapes, photos, and documents that could implicate not just him, but the biggest names in entertainment. And if that vault exists, it's not just about Diddy's private encounters. It's about who else was in the room.
I don't mind taking on the responsibility of it. Like, there being the truth, he's not gonna be afraid. Like, 50 will just let my story be my story and not be afraid to change it.
But there are also some people that feel or want to know, and how do you respond to people who say that it's more about the disdain that you have for Sean Combs than it is for giving the victim?
Let's talk about the business side of this, because that's where the real motive comes into focus. Diddy didn't just want control over artists. He wanted control over the industry. And the way you do that isn't just with hits, it's with silence. Look at the careers that mysteriously stalled. Faith Evans, once the first lady of Bad Boy, saw her momentum grind to a halt after she distanced herself from Diddy's inner circle. Craig Mack, the artist behind Flava and Yair, vanished from the industry entirely. Black Rob, who allegedly refused to participate in Diddy's world, found his career in freefall. Meanwhile, the artists who played ball? They thrived. Meek Mill's sudden resurgence after years in the wilderness. Usher's unshakable status as an R&B icon. Even Justin Bieber's meteoric rise, with Diddy whispering in his ear about getting girls at 15. This wasn't just about personal gratification. It was a system, a way to ensure that no one could leave, no one could talk, and no one could challenge his power. Because if you did, well, the industry has a funny way of forgetting your name. And that system didn't just rely on fear, it relied on complicity. Because here's the thing about Diddy's parties, they weren't secret.
50's
Fifth, y'all don't even. Fifth is
play around
different.
if you want to.
Fifth is different.
And he's on tour. He ain't even in
The guest lists were packed with industry heavyweights, executives, producers, even other artists who had to know what was going on. So why didn't anyone speak up? The answer might be simpler than we think. They were part of it. Whether by participation or by silence, they benefited from the machine. And that's why, even now, with the lawsuits piling up and the FBI knocking on doors, some of the biggest names in music are still staying quiet. They're not just protecting Diddy, they're protecting themselves. Now, let's talk about the one name that hasn't been mentioned yet, the one person who's been conspicuously absent from this conversation. Someone who was there from the beginning, someone who had the power to stop it, and didn't. We're talking about the artist who built an empire right alongside Diddy, who attended the same parties, who worked with the same producers, and who has never, not once, publicly distanced himself from the scandal. That's right, Jay-Z. The man who called Diddy his brother, who collaborated with him on some of the biggest hits of the 90s and 2000s, and who has remained eerily silent as the allegations pile up. Why? What does he know? And more importantly, what does he have to hide? Think about it. Jay-Z wasn't just a peer, he was a partner. Their careers were intertwined for years, from the Bad Boy remixes to the Rockefeller collaborations. They moved in the same circles, attended the same events, and, if the rumors are true, may have even shared some of the same secrets. So where's his statement? Where's his outrage? Where's his denial? There isn't one. Just silence. And in an industry where silence is the most expensive currency, that says everything. Because if Jay-Z, a man with the resources, the platform, and the moral high ground to speak out, is choosing to stay quiet, it's not because he doesn't know. It's because he can't afford to talk. And that's when you realize this isn't just about Diddy. It's about an entire industry built on the same rules, where power isn't just measured in dollars or awards, but in what you know about the people around you, where the real currency isn't talent, it's silence. So ask yourself, if the biggest names in music are too afraid to speak, what does that say about what they've seen? And what does it say about the system that allowed it to happen? We've peeled back the layers on Diddy's alleged empire, but the story doesn't end here. Because the real question isn't just about what he did, it's about who helped him do it, and who's still protecting him today. So tell us in the comments, who do you think is hiding the most? And remember, some secrets are too big to stay buried forever. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and don't forget to like and subscribe, because the truth, it's coming. And when it does, the whole industry is going to shake. Until next time, keep your eyes open. The real scandal is always hiding in plain sight.